Have you ever had a coworker who was so incompetent you wondered how they got hired? Story 1. We had an opening for a 1-year contract employee to work with the other couple of guys who work under me. The boss hired a guy with a 10-page resume written in 6-point font without consulting me or bringing me in on the interview. First day on the job, he tells us about his ongoing divorce and that his goal was to become a vice president in our company in 2 years. He was a 1-year contract, low-level employee. Second day on the job, he reveals to one of the other guys under me that his wife and her father both had restraining orders against them, and that both of them worked for our company, the father even being in our building. This led to an instant security investigations, and they let him stay somehow. He never shut up. Like seriously, talked all day long. He wouldn't get properly trained because he thought he knew everything and kept messing everything up. He started blogging on our company's internal social media site without permission. He was told by my boss to stop. He didn't. Was asked to train on drawing flowcharts in PowerPoint. Instead, he made a 12-page PowerPoint done outlining his 3-year communications plan for our giant multi-billion-dollar company, done in the official company template, and sent it out across the country to all sorts of higher-ups. This naturally caused giant waves as everyone was like, "What's this new plan? What's going on with the plan we had?" Told me he could type 300 words per minute, numerous other things. He was eventually fired at 7 months into his contract. He was eating an ice cream cone when my boss came in to fire him and asked to step into another office to be fired. Asked, "Can I bring my ice cream?" Then after being fired, he came out, still looking the ice cream cone, and said, "I just got fired." The combo of his face with the ice cream cone was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen, and the first time I felt sorry for him. Months after being fired, he got a new job and called my boss to ask what he could do different at his new job to not get fired. My boss was like, "I tried telling you for 7 months what not to do," and hung up on him. Story 2. This short little mushroom-haired lady that I worked with is unbelievably incompetent and works at some capacity in HR. She is more of a minion of them, but still, she has way too much power. Recently, she sent out an email with somewhere near 100 social security numbers of salaried employees over a certain age. When I started here, it was as a temp, and someone had to submit my hours. My boss would send it to her. She would approve it and submit it to the temp agency. The week he was on vacation, I tried to ensure my hours were submitted, and so I enlisted my bigger boss, as I was pretty sure I knew how this would end up. So I emailed my hours to him, and to her as well, as I was instructed to do. Then boss and I walked over to her desk to ensure she had sent it in, as it needed to be done that day. I advised her that I submitted my hours, and could she send it on. She stared at me blankly. I reminded her that I worked for the temp agency and had just sent her the email. She opened the manila folder on her desk, lifted a few sheets, and shook her head. "I didn't get it." She sighed internally, smiled, and said again that I literally just emailed it to her, just now. She again opened the manila folder, patted the sheets inside, and shook her head again. "It's not here." My boss looks absolutely shell-shocked. I patted the top of her monitor and said slowly, but kindly, "It wouldn't be on paper. It would be in her email." She looked in the folder again. My boss, now extremely impatient and flabbergasted, glared at her and reiterated that it was sent just before we walked over, and could she please check her email. I swear she looked in the folder again and started shuffling through the papers. I wanted to cry. Actually, I wanted to push her out of the chair and click on the email myself, but I think that might have been frowned upon in the office environment. The saddest thing of it all is, she is the one who does a lot of the settings for the new hires, so when I got hired on permanently, she did a lot of it. I kept getting wrong stuff, duplicate entries, one with my name spelled wrong. In my first 2 paychecks after being made permanent, I had to go bother people to get written because it wasn't getting paid. Come to find out, it was a combination of misspelled name and transposed social security numbers. I filled out my side of the paperwork multiple times, and she had hard copies of my license and SS card. I have no idea how she is still here. Sorry for the novel. Story 3. One of my buddies is literally George Costanzaing his way through his career. He's an assistant manager or something like that in a toy company. He pretends he's always busy, walks frustrated, always holding a folder in his hand, and always rolls up his sleeves and walks fast. His meetings are ridiculous. I seriously can't believe that it's working. I'm not sure if getting a job is just that easy or if he's just lucky. Note, he's been working there for 5 years, has a diploma in finance and marketing or something to do with business, and his branch has around 200 workers. He says he has 3 bosses on his ass. Oh yeah, and in his interview he lied about his heritage and his employer thinks they share an ancestor. Story 4. The woman I used to share an office with when I first started at my job would come in at 10:30 a.m., complain about how she had nothing to do, when in reality she had a lot to do, and proceeded to leave at 2:30 p.m., claiming, "I'll just work from home the rest of the day." She also napped at her desk, walked around barefoot, watched movies, talked to her friends loudly on the phone, fell asleep at meetings, and often took naps in her car. Yes, she was fired. Story 5. My company is filled with them. Maintenance and head of shop can never correctly predict how long it will take for them to finish anything. This is paramount because we charge by the hour but quote first and can't charge for more hours after the fact. We can try, but it doesn't work. He gets yelled at every single day for fucking up in some way or another. At first I felt sorry for him, but since I've noticed he makes no effort to change his ways whatsoever, he is no longer pitied. Also, I've heard him blame other people not responsible for what he was blaming them for within earshot of said person. Also, he lies. A lot. Our company will never fire him. Sales guy who accompanies me on sales trips. He falls asleep in our meetings, spaces out. About 90% of the time when he answers a question, it is the perfect answer to fuck up the sale. He has no sense of marketing or salesmanship whatsoever, and he is my supervisor. Our head of sales wanted to set up a booth at a trade show, but instead of buying materials for the booth, he wanted us, no joke, to ask a company we were partnered with if we could stand in their booth instead and tape a printed sign with our name on it to their $10,000 booth backdrop. He was serious. This was his response to me suggesting we pay for a $600 freestanding sign for our booth. Story 6. I used to work at a funeral home. There was a worker there who, whenever she caught a glimpse of a dead body, would nervously snort laugh. We found this out the hard way when, the first visitation she worked, she let out an obnoxiously loud chortle with the entire family sitting and crying a few feet away. The family gave her some dirty looks, and after apologizing profusely, the manager just made her work in the back the rest of the shift. I asked her if anything was wrong, and she told me she was terrified of dead people. Bewildered, I asked her why she took the job at a funeral home in the first place, to which she responded, "The money was too good not to pass up. We paid $14 an hour." She also thought that she'd only be doing clerical work. Since she was in the back now, I deemed the situation A-okay and continued working. Bad move on my part. During funeral visitations, people often order flowers, which get delivered during the service. We then put the flowers on a pedestal next to the casket for the family to admire. So this girl gets a flower delivery and decides to brave the fear and put them next to the casket. Sure enough, she starts snort laughing like a banshee. The family looks disgusted once again. Then, to make matters a million times worse, being right next to the casket, she caught a super close glimpse of the deceased. This swiftly prompted her to puke directly onto the deceased. The girl gasped, the family gasped, the employees gasped. There was dead silence for at least 15 seconds. One family member cried. Then another joined in, and another. It was a domino effect hysteria like I'd never seen before. The chick was obviously fired on the spot, and she ran out without saying a word. TLDR. Squeamish funeral home worker is deathly afraid of dead people.